Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. So I have a newsletter. I've got about 5,000 CEOs, C-suite, and VPs on a list, and I surveyed them probably at the beginning of the summer, so probably in June, maybe 4 months ago. And yeah, the results that people came back about, where they were, the needs that they have for it, were fascinating. So I think about 25% were CEOs, 25% C-suite, and the rest were VPs. And there was a sort of distinct difference in how they see and want to use the tools. Less than 1% of people feel like they're proficient with the tools. The great majority, I think it was like maybe like 84%, said that they were very much like just beginning to use these tools. So sort of in their early experiences of it.
Hey Barry, I'm really excited to see you today. Uh,
Yeah, no, it's been a while since we caught up. It's good to see you again, and
yeah,
beautiful flowers grown in your garden and in your background. So yeah, it's good to see
thank you.
you're
And
doing well with that.
I'm just have to say that Barry is one of my favorite people on the planet and one of the people I enjoy just bouncing ideas off of. He's he's a thought leader. He's writes a great blog and e-zine. We'll give you a link to that because he's always got cutting edge thoughts that he's sharing that I think you'll find really interesting. So, Barry, today before we started the talking, I looked up on Google how many people are having trouble learning AI. And
What? Yeah.
yeah, what do you think? It said that the majority of people are having, there's widespread difficulty having acquisition, um, understanding how to use it, whether they're individuals or in the workforce. What's your experience?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. So I have a newsletter. I've got about 5,000 CEOs, C-suite, and VPs on a list, and I surveyed them probably at the beginning of the summer, so probably in June, maybe 4 months ago. And yeah, the results that people came back about, where they were, the needs that they have for it, were fascinating. So I think about 25% were CEOs, 25% C-suite, and the rest were VPs. And there was a sort of distinct difference in how they see and want to use the tools. Less than 1% of people feel like they're proficient with the tools. The great majority, I think it was like maybe like 84%, said that they were very much like just beginning to use these tools. So sort of in their early experiences of it. But the thing that was most fascinating to me is I started asking them like, how do you want to use these tools? And the use cases are like night and day for each of them. I'm actually just going to pull up the report because it's good to sort of actually get the specifics when I'm chatting to folks. But unsurprisingly, the thing that CEOs care about is they're most interested in just cost reduction. This sort of promise that AI will make things cheaper, that they'll need less people, they can get more out of the te teams that they have. And but then on the other side, the VPs who are generally responsible for the execution, they all they're thinking about is how they can save more time, but more importantly, how they can make better decisions about what they're doing. And for me, again, what I've learned through this, and for your listeners to understand a little bit about where I'm coming from, I'm the co-founder of a AI venture studio. So a venture studio is like a VC and an incubator rolled into one. We raise money, we have business ideas, we sort of incubate and build those ideas, and then try and bring them to market.
Hmm.
So a lot of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis and have been doing for the last sort of 4 or 5 years is experimenting with these tools and understanding not only how they can be applied to products, but most importantly, how I can use them in my day to day to make me more a higher performance in the work that I'm doing. So it's been a fascinating sort of journey watching the tools both improve and then also see the wider adoption and interest in them, but also the struggles. And yeah, today I think I can share lots of lessons that I've learned. I'm not a data scientist. I'm not I haven't been building large learning models. I did train as an engineer, but I didn't really enjoy coding very much. I ended up getting into product management. So I have a little bit of context on these things, but everything has just been learning by doing and trying. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons I would really encourage everybody listening is you cannot learn this stuff by reading about it. It's probably one of those really unique experiences that I've certainly had in my career where I can read as much blogs as I want about this stuff, but it's not teaching me anything really. You
Right.
have to get hands-on and you have to start using it.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And one of the things that I think is so interesting about you is you wrote a book that is now a classic,
Ah,
Unlearn. And let me just leave that on there a little bit longer. Um, and I find for myself, I need to find some way to think about learning this so that I can learn it well. And some of your blogs and your newsletters are talking about that, about letting go of legacy or thinking differently so that we can take it in. And I think most of my audience, which are women who are leaders, it would be very helpful to know, how do I begin to absorb this? I personally, sometimes I feel like it's a fire hose, like like how do I get all this information in? And you are so good at teaching how to learn things and unlearn. So can you give us a little information about that? How
yeah,
it
no, yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to share. Like, this is so there's a couple of things going on right now in the market, right? One is every day there's a new tool. So p people are sort of overwhelmed by this constant sort of barrage from marketing teams that there's a new tool to do photo uploading. There's a new tool to do email writing. There's a new tool to do meeting scheduling. There's a new tool. So people are almost like this constant stream of new things that they have to learn.
right?
Um, and that's a great job by the marketing teams, but it's actually not the place people need to start. In many respects, if you follow every single tool, you'll just get overwhelmed because tools are designed for specific use cases that you don't even know if that's a use case that is important to you yet, right? So what I tend to say to people is you actually almost have to forget about the tools to begin with. The place you actually need to start is like with your personal traits, if you will, your behaviors, the natural ways that you work. And what's the idea is that once you sort of understand how you like to work, like your behaviors. So a good example is we're chatting here now and you're instantly picking up a pen to start writing down notes. There
Yes.
you go,
Yeah.
right? So this is a way that you process and manage work, right? That's your method,
Yeah.
right? For me, the way I actually naturally work is I talk a lot, right? I'm on calls, I'm on meetings, and if I'm coming up with ideas, I tend to talk a lot, to talk the ideas out. That's a trait that I have,
Mhm.
right? So when I'm trying to then explore about how do I use this sort of technology to enhance my working experience, it's really important that I understand myself about what makes me more effective. Because once I do that, I can start to think about the world a little differently. Now, this is one of the big things we have to unlearn. Um, Meetings, especially, are a place where we traditionally generate loads of information, but most of the information gets lost, right? So you and I talk and chat on a podcast, information is flowing, it goes into our heads. You might write a few things down. I might write a post-it note, draw a picture. Maybe I record something. But for the most part, after we have that meeting, the information starts to disappear. We vaguely remember things, or maybe we wrote stuff down. So we're sort of losing information. The power now of these toolings is you can have things like co-pilots that are sitting in meetings with you, that are running automatic transcriptions and in essence, they're databases, they're information capture sources. When you and I are doing creative work like we are now and using our brains in a creative manner, they're capturing all the content and turning it into data ultimately. And then what's really fascinating about that is once you start to think about when you're meeting people that you are generating information, that you're storing in the database, that you're able to leverage later, it suddenly starts to shift the way you start to think about work because you're aware of how you generate information. We're talking, you're writing, someone's drawing pictures. These are all information generating, but they're also information sources. So what's been really sort of fascinating then is teaching execs to understand that because they talk most of the day and they lose a lot of information. So if they start using these tools to capture everything that they're saying, everything that's been said accurately, they have this amazing data source now that they can go back and start to leverage. So what I'm teaching them now how to do is like at the end of their day, execs are in meetings back to back all day. I'm sure many of your listeners are. They finish the day exhausted. And then they finish the day after a full series of meetings for 10 hours with a whole load of follow-up work, summaries that they need to write, emails that they need to write, actions that they need to capture, which for most people is another 2 to 3 hours work. And that causes stress and it means they're doing more and they're taking away from other parts of their life. Uh, I don't do that anymore. I used to be that person, but I'm not that person anymore. Because what I'm doing in my meetings is I'm sitting there with co-pilots that are sitting in the meeting with me. I'm aware of the trait that I use to generate information and how I work and where I'm doing my most creative work. Then the next step is understanding the tasks that I have. So tasks might be meetings, they might be workshops, they might be coaching calls, they might be product design sessions. So I know when I'm doing those tasks that the information I'm generating is going to be important in those. And if I can find ways to leverage that information much faster, especially on specific tasks, then I can be more effective with my time. So a very simple one is this a meeting. If I have let's say I do a coaching call, I know I'm going to be doing creative work with someone where we're debating ideas and philosophies and things to do. I have a meeting transcript or co-pilot running. At the end of that meeting, I would need to send a follow-up to the coachee about what we talked about, what were the actions, what were the steps. That's the task. So I use a tool. In this instance, Otter is my co-pilot. ChatGPT is a tool that I use. So after every meeting, I download the transcript. I upload it into ChatGPT. I have a prompt that I've written that says, write an email to the coachee after the call. I want you to output the information, the key themes, key behavior or mindset shifts, statements in their own words that exemplify changes in behavior, a set of actions that we agreed, and then help them understand what the next steps are for the next coaching call. So I just hand that transcript to ChatGPT. It prints out the email that I want to send in obviously 30 seconds. I review it to make sure it's consistent with my beliefs, and then I send it. So I can do that process in probably a total of 2 minutes. So every coaching call, all I need to do is make sure I leave 1 to 5 minutes at the end to run that process, and it's done. So I don't have 2 hours at the end of my day where I have to go back to sort of stale notes or half remembered ideas from 4 hours ago and three foot coaching calls ago. I'm using the tools to enhance or to solve the tasks I need to do based on the traits of myself that I'm aware of. And so that makes me super efficient. So
Right. And
now,
just for a second, that if you were to do that without ChatGPT, just do it on your own, what's the difference in time? You doing that as opposed to ChatGPT doing it for you.
yeah, so I've been measuring all the metrics over time. It's been pretty fun. So typically, for me to write a good meeting summary from a coaching call can take
Right.
anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes, right? Just typing it all out, looking at my notes, doing an introduction, bullet pointing everything out. Like it's literally about a 1,000 word email that you're sending to these people. And now I do it in less than often 3 minutes.
Wow.
So the time it takes me to read. Right. So if you can imagine, though, and this is sort of where I don't really talk about getting time back. I tend to think of it like I'm spending more of my time on creative problem solving work
Mhm.
and less of my time on this sort of routine, repeatable, sort of like automatic time thinking work. It's important to send those follow-up emails, but it takes time and it's not really that creative. I'm just sort of summarizing what we discussed in the creative work. So for me, I'm happier when I'm doing the creative work because it's interesting and complex and problem solving. And then I feel like you have to pay the cost of doing that interesting work with the time thinking but necessary routine work. But what the power for me, the promise of what AI is giving, especially senior leaders, is that they can spend more time on the creative problem solving work, which is again most interesting, highest leverage, and often unique what you can do. And the routine yet required work is automated. So you spend less time on it. Right. So you can imagine now, I'm happier because I'm doing more creative work all day. I can do 8 hours of coaching calls and then finish and close my laptop and go do something else, hang out in the garden, cook dinner with my family, and not be sitting there like fretting about the three emails I need to write or rushing people to say, I got to go now because I got to go back and do my work. I'm doing it in it's, if you will, the allotment that I've set for that time and that effort. And the quality and the speed at which I'm creating things is really high. So I get letters and notes or email back from people I work with that they're sort of they're almost in shock, going like, how did you send me all the information? We just spoke about it like 5 minutes ago. I've been in two other meetings and you've got all this stuff done, but I can't reply to them because I'm doing another coaching call, right?
Mhm.
I'm focused, but it's sort of this is where you start to get leverage and you get more time on what you're uniquely interested in and capable of, and you reduce the time that is sort of routine or time sucky. And for me, that's sort of been the magic of all these tools is that uh, I'm doing the best work, most interesting work, and I'm also doing disciplined work. That I people are still aware of the conversations we have and how we capture it. And yeah, so I've been again, I started doing this because I was a part of this venture studio and we're trying to build 100 companies in 5 years. So it's a fire hose of appointments and workshops and design things. And so I needed a method that I could actually capture all this data that I was creating in these sessions and ways to synthesize it, to share it, to track it, to leverage it later. And that's really been quite transformative about how I'm working. And as a result of that, as you say, I blog about it and many people have got in touch with me to help them do it. So yeah, for a small number of people, I've been helping them by doing small coaching about how they can start to do this as well.
So I've got multiple questions for you, but the beginning thing where you're talking about the note taking, I'm thinking of a client who's working in a company that's kind of chaotic, the communication isn't good, and the vice president has these meetings and says, go do all of these things, and then ends the meeting with nobody, they can't ask questions, and everybody walks away going, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And that looks like meetings would be a great way to utilize this, to have the
Yeah,
notes taken, and what are the takeaways from this? Can you just speak a little bit about that, about how you'd use it in a meeting?
yeah, so there's sort of like it's almost like there's a progression that happens with folks when they start using these tools, right? The first is just this um I'm sure most of your listeners have opened something like ChatGPT or Claude or one of these tools and just played around with it, right? Where they just sort of ask a question like maybe say they're asking a work question like what are the top things my competitors are doing?
Right.
And what really blew people away about these tools, especially in the last 12 to 18 months, is that the responses that they were getting back from very open and not non-specific questions was actually, you know, quite relevant. And they were kind of shocked by that. They're like, oh my God, how does it know this stuff? Right? But again, an AI just is making a guess all the time. It's always making a guess based on the information it has access to. But that experience that people had of like typing in something very simple in a chat GBT and getting quite a voluminous output back to them that was relatively context specific and relevant sort of shocked them, you know? And most people are start by just playing around by asking these questions or doing things like, can you copy edit this email? Or can you make this better? Or, right, like they're very simple commands that you're asking of the machine as you start, right? But that's great, but it's very like, it's not even the tip of the iceberg about what these tools can do. The next one you start thinking about is executive workflows, right? And that's thinking about on a daily basis, what are these sort of tasks that you do? And meetings are a classic task that everybody has. Some people want to prepare for meetings. Some people, there's a method to doing a great meeting. There's
Mhm.
the preparation. So you're prepped yourself and you understand what it's about and what you want to cover. There's like sending out an agenda. There's like performing the meeting and running it to a set criteria that you want to get outcomes that you want. There's a synthesis of the meeting and sharing that back with people so everyone's clear of what happened, what decisions were made, who's accountable for what was agreed. And then you need to forget about it for a while, and then you've that next meeting or the follow-up again, right? So there's all these steps that are involved in running a really good, disciplined, well-executed meeting. And yet most people don't, right? If you're lucky, you sort of get an invite, and there's rarely an agenda. People sort of show up going, what's this about? And there's some sort of dialogue, and then people generally leave. And in most cases, as you're describing, they sit there going, okay, well, what decisions were made? Who made them? What's the like? People just leave, and then you go and do the next recurring meeting next week, right? And it's just there's no discipline to it, and any of the information created is often lost, or it's half remembered by different people. So again, this is just being aware of those traits that are happening in your company. And if you want to change them, you have to be aware of them. And that's sort of a bit of the unlearning piece, is recognizing what you're doing today might not actually be bringing you success. It actually might be holding you back. And if you augment those meetings with artificial intelligence or some sort of tool that can help you capture the meeting, transcribe it, you can suddenly get a little bit better because at the end of the meeting, you can ask the database, what were the actual actions in this meeting? you can send that out to everyone who attended and say, do you agree that this is what we discussed and what the actions were? And it starts this sort of if you will, behavior change across a whole company, but it also starts making you more efficient. And then you go to the next meeting and you can say, oh, can you remind me the actions that we agreed in that last meeting? Can I send them to everybody 2 days in advance to make sure that they've thought about them or addressed them? And then let's make those actions the topics for the next meeting. Right. So very simply, by just having this co-pilot with you, which is a source that you can go back to and ask questions of and say, what did we decide? Who ran it? All the things that you might naturally remember yourself, but you're augmenting it with like a proper, fully audited, captured, uh, record of everything that was said and happened. And
I
that
want
just starts to give you more power.
to also the question, was there anything we missed that would be important for the topic we're talking about? And I've been blown away that Claude or ChatGPT will give me a piece of information that I just totally, it was off the radar. I hadn't seen it. So it can even help you improve those meetings, right?
Right on. And again, this is where things start to get really interesting, right? Because again, we're at this point in most people's journey, this could be the first thing that they've ever used a co-pilot or an AI in anything that they're doing, which is just basically sitting in the sessions they are and capturing everything. And then to your point again, your next baby step is like asking it questions. And they're often like, well, what did we discuss and what did we do? And then the next step, as you said, is starting to ask disconfirming questions. What are we missing? What are implicit assumptions? The next types of questions you can ask is look at series of meetings and say, what are some of the patterns that you're observing in these meetings? What could be ways we could improve them? What could be ways, is there anything that you believe we're not talking about that we should? Right? So this is the idea of surfacing blind spots. It gets really interesting, right? Many people, depending on their role, often have these sort of hunches that they have about how work or how things are going. Maybe you're a manager and you have lots of one-on-ones during the week, so you're talking to all your different reports, and you have this hunch that there's something not right about initiative ABC because Mary said something about it, and Bob said something about it, and Jane said something about it, and actually in the all hands meeting somebody said something. So your spider senses are sort of like, intuition. Imagine you're able to just take all of those data sources, plug them together, and then also ask a machine, what are some of the patterns or trends you're noticing in these 10 meetings that I've had this week? Now, you should already be doing the work yourself to start thinking about those things. But imagine where you've got a sort of other party who can then also reflect back to you things that in a non-judgmental in a way that you suddenly get into this intellectual sparring situation where you can start testing some of your own assumptions and beliefs against another entity. That's not necessarily a work colleague, where if you sort of ask a question that's a little bit half-baked or uninformed, that they start extrapolating other ideas into it. Right. And this is again where I've seen with these executive workflows, that's actually one of the most powerful uses of these tools, is because as a leader, it's often hard to bring um, unformed, messy ideas to a broad group of people because it can create uncertainty. It can create people can extrapolate when they don't need to. So actually, what I've learned myself and also what I've been coaching others is like when you have new ideas, innovations, strategies, one of the best places to start developing that is actually having a dialogue with an AI by pulling all the information sources together that you're creating and then starting to sort of debate it and say, here's a scenario. I'm thinking of launching a new product in this market. Here's all the conversations I've had over the last 2 months. What are the common patterns that show up? What are the common themes? What are some of the assumptions? Give me three options for opening in the new market, doubling the investment in opening in the new market, or not going in at all. What are the pros and cons in each? What are the assumptions with each? What would my competitors do if I did that? What are some, be a skeptical executive and ask me 10 questions I should be able to answer against each of these strategies. Right? Suddenly the resiliency in both your thinking and the idea is sort of being leveled up. Right? You're sparring intellectually with this sort of machine. Right? It's like going to the gym and training before you're going into battle. So any of these sort of like high stakes situations, again, it's another great use case where leaders can sort of practice. Maybe you've got a big job interview. Maybe you've got a board meeting. Maybe you've got a big presentation to the company. Again, this is sort of a great place where you can load all of your thoughts together. They can be messy, they can be unstructured, but it can help you find a narrative, a structure, and then start sparring, if you will, with the information you're playing with. And again, that builds more context and resiliency into what you're doing. So that's just a little example of going from this sort of individual sort of make the emails better to thinking about daily tasks that are important to me to like really seeing AI as a thinking partner and challenging your thinking.
Well, we're going to have to end. This is part one, so we'll get into this in greater detail in part two. But I want to ask if people want to get a hold of you, whether they would like coaching in this or find out about your newsletter. Tell us how they would get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I'm at BarryOReilly.com. You can find me on all good websites. And also, yeah, if you want to follow the blog, again, go to BarryOReilly.com. You can sign up to my newsletter there or LinkedIn or but yeah, generally try to share as much as I possibly can, both here and in many formats. So yeah, if you're interested, by all means, there's a bunch of tools that you can download that I've built and shared with other leaders as they sort of start to figure out how to go through this process for themselves. And so you can readily access those by going to the website and downloading all those resources for free. But again, what I would always say to you and to all your listeners is the only way you can learn this stuff is by doing it. There's really no other way. And probably one of the most fascinating things, and another thing that has to be unlearned, is when people hit a roadblock with these tools, their natural propensity is to go find a person to show them how to do it. But with
Okay,
this,
I'm going to stop you, and in part two, you can tell us how to do that, okay? So,
can I just push back a tiny bit?
sure.
This tool is the one tool I would say can actually teach you how to use it by asking it questions. And
Oh,
that's probably one of the biggest things to unlearn about it, is that you can ask the tool how to teach you how to use the tool when you get blocked. And that's something people have to unlearn, is when they get stuck, they don't need to ask a person. Part of the learning process is actually asking the machine how to use the machine better. And that is one thing I would encourage all of you to sort of unlearn as you start to play around with these tools.
okay. Thanks, Barry.